Hello, Planeswalkers! Andrew here with another deck tech. Today's commander is Athreos, God of Passage. Athreos is a 5/4 enchantment god for 1 white and black with indestructible and devotion of 7. His most important ability, however, is that he has you choose an opponent whenever another one of your creatures dies, and that opponent can either pay 3 life or let you return the creature to your hand instead of putting it in the grave. So obviously, Athreos is a reanimator commander, which means we want to run an aristocrat-style build. The path I chose to take with this deck is using Shadowborn Apostles to cheat out scary demons from the deck and recur the Apostles with Athreos. So our first category of this build is the demons, which will start with the core of the deck, the Apostles that grab demons for us. Each Shadowborn Apostle says that you can have as many copies of it in your deck as you want, and you can pay a single black and sacrifice 6 of them to search your deck for a demon and put it on the battlefield. With Athreos, we can either recur all 6 to our hand, or burn an opponent for an amount of damage. Usually you want to target the opponent with the least amount of life, so that they're more likely to let you return the Apostles to your hand than take 18 to the face. This build runs 15 Shadowborn Apostles, but you can mess with the ratio as much as you'd like, though I wouldn't go with too many fewer than 15. As for demons, we run Dream Devourer, which gives all of our spells foretell, and it gets +2/+0 whenever you foretell a card. Feaster of Fools is a 3/3 flyer with Convoke, which lets you tap creatures to pay for its colorless mana cost, and it has Devour 2, which lets you sacrifice any number of creatures when it enters and put twice that many +1/+1 counters on it. Harvester of Souls is a 5/5 with Death Touch, and it draws you a card whenever another non-token creature you control dies. Obnixilis Unshackled is old Obby while his spark was out, and he's a 4/4 flyer with Trample, and he punishes your opponents when they search their libraries by making them sack a creature and lose 10 life, and he gets a +1/+1 counter whenever another creature dies. Razaketh is an 8/8 flying trampler that lets you pay 2 life and sack a creature to Demonic Tutor. Runescarred Demon is a 6/6 flyer that tutors when it enters. Scourge of the Skyclaves can be kicked, and when it is, each player loses half their life rounded up, and its power and toughness are equal to 20 minus the highest life total at the table. Finally, Varagoth Blood Sky Sire is a 2/3 Death Toucher with Boast for 1 and a black. Target player tutors for a card. Next up we have Graveyard Recursion, redundancy in case Athreos isn't able to get our Apostles back to our hand. Angel of Glory's Rise exiles all zombies, and then returns all humans in your grave to the field when she enters. Athreos Shroud Veiled puts a coin counter on any creature at your end step, and whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is exiled, they're immediately returned to the field under your control. Yes, you can steal other people's creatures this way. Command the Dreadhorde lets you choose any number of creatures or planeswalkers among all graveyards, hits you for damage equal to their total CMC, then puts them onto the field under your control. With the Apostles only costing 1 mana each, and with some of our cards gaining us life, you can pretty easily pay 6 life to return all 6 Apostles to the battlefield. Sun Titan returns a creature with CMC 3 or less from your grave to the field when it enters or attacks. Finally, Witch of the Moors has all opponents sack a creature and returns a creature from your grave to your hand at the end step if you gain life this turn. We'll ideally be killing 6 Apostles, hopefully more than once, so we may as well run cards that reward us when our creatures die. To that end, assume each of the following effects occur when our creatures die unless otherwise specified. Blood Artist causes a opponent to lose a life and you gain a life. Cruel Celebrant does the same, except each opponent loses a life. Daxos Blessed by the Sun gains you a life, both when our creatures die and when they enter the field. Dictate of Erebos forces our opponents to sack a creature. Relic Vial causes our opponents to lose a life and you to gain a life. Species Specialist has us choose a creature type when it enters, which should be Cleric, because all of our Apostles are human clerics, but not all of our clerics in the deck are humans, and it draws you a card when a creature of the chosen type dies. Finally, Sir Conrad the Grim hits every opponent for 1 whenever another creature dies, is put in a grave from anywhere, or leaves the grave. Thus is the end of the period of assuming effects occur when stuff dies. I am a wordsmith. We'll go through our support cards next, starting with Bontu's Monument, which makes black creatures you control cost 1 less, and when you cast a creature, your opponents lose a life and you gain a life. Cleric of Life's Bond gains you a life whenever a cleric enters under your control, and gets a +1/+1 counter the first time you gain life each turn. Defiant Bloodlord causes each opponent to lose life when you gain life. Despark exiles a permanent with CMC 4 or more. Diabolic Tutor tutors for a card and puts it into your hand. Edgewalker reduces the cost of all clerics you cast by a white and a black, which makes Shadowborn Apostles free to cast. Epicure of Blood has each opponent lose a life whenever you gain life. Kaya's Wrath destroys all creatures and gains you life equal to the number of creatures you controlled that died this way. Oketra's Monument makes your white creatures cost 1 less, and when you cast a creature, you make a 1/1 Vigilant Warrior. Sanguine Bond has your opponents lose life whenever you gain life. Secret Salvage lets you exile a card from your grave and search up as many cards from your deck that share a name with it and add them to your hand. Combining this with Edgewalker means that you can just spit out all of the Shadowborn Apostles from your deck at once. Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord, gives all of your creatures and planeswalkers lifelink on your turn, and he can hit a player or planeswalker for 1, or return a creature from your grave to the field as a vampire. Finally, Utter End simply exiles a permanent. Next up are our card advantage cards. First up is Ashnod's Altar, which lets you sack a creature for 2 mana. Bolas's Citadel lets you look at the top card of your library at any time and cast it for life equal to its CMC instead of mana. It can also sack 10 non-land permanents to make each opponent lose 10 life. Burnished Heart can be sacked to find 2 basic lands. Read the Bones has you scry 2, draw 2, and lose 2 life. Replicating Ring taps for any color and makes 8 copies of itself after 8 turns of sticking around. Skullclamp can be attached to a creature to give it +1/-1, and draws you 2 cards when the equipped creature dies. Finally, we have the classic Soul Ring. Our land base is last. Barren Moor taps for a black and enters tapped, and can be cycled for a black. Bojuka Bog exiles all cards from a player's grave when it enters. Bright Climb Pathway can be played as either a black or white land. Castle Locthwain can enter untapped if you have a swamp, and can be tapped to draw you a card and you lose life equal to the cards in your hand. Evolving Wilds can be sacked to search up a basic. Fetid Heath can either be tapped for a colorless or paid into to tap for 2 of our colors. Isolated Chapel can enter untapped if you control a plains or swamp. Orzhov Basilica returns a card to your hand when it enters and taps for 2 of our colors. Orzhov Guildgate enters tapped and taps for either of our colors. Scoured Barrens enters tapped and gains you a life, and Temple of Silence lets you scry 1 when it enters. We also run 9 plains and 20 swamps. And there's the deck! I built it myself from scratch, and I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. Again, you can mess with the ratio of Shadowborn Apostles, and you can fit in more demons and cut some ramp or death triggers. Let me know what you think of the deck in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps us out a lot. Have a great day, y'all.